So today we're going to be doing our very first maintenance on our Tiguan, or I guess the very first maintenance on this channel as well. We're going to be doing an oil change on this 2013 Tiguan. Should be fairly simple, very straightforward. There's only, I believe, one drain plug that we have to loosen and then put it back up. That's pretty much it. And then obviously you have to drain the oil and then put fresh oil in there. But we're going to do it on this Tiguan, show it to you guys. Should be fairly simple, but the first thing we got to do is to clean that car up, put it into the garage, and then drive my GTI out. Hopefully we don't have any problems because the GTI does not have winter tires. GTI only has all seasons, but there's nobody here anyways. I don't think it's gonna be any problem. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is that my house at the end, there's a pretty big cliff down here. Should be fine. I don't think I'm gonna drive that fast anyway, so fingers crossed. All right, it's swapping time. All right guys, so the car's clean, the floor is dry, it's already jacked up, so it's ready to go for the oil change. Keep watching to the end of this video as I have a small teaser at the end. It's about the next thing that I'm going to be working on. Spoiler alert, is about the GTI, but for this video it's about the Tiguan, so let's get it going. First of all, this video is not sponsored at all. I paid for every part, every oil, and every tool myself. So before we get it started, let's first talk about what oil we're gonna be using. So the oil that we're gonna be using today is this one. Liquimoly SAE 5W40. And it also has a certification from VW Long Life 01, Porsche 840, MB229.5, Renault RN0700, and VW 502-505. So the thing that you need to look for when you're choosing an oil is you need to look for the certifications. So this one, the one that I'm looking for is the VW 502-505, which is exactly what this car needs. If you own a BMW, then you might be looking for the BMW Long Life certification. So it really varies and depends on what car and manufacturer that you're driving or you own. So that's the reason why I went with this one. For the brand, you can pretty much use any brand. As long as it has a good and right certification, you should be fine. I just heard a lot of good things about Liquimoly. Another really important number is the weight, which is 5W40 like it's shown here. So for which weight you need to be using, it really depends on the car. If you don't know, you can just always call your dealer and ask them, or you can just Google online, look for your user manual, things like that. For my case, like I said, you looked in the user manual, it's either 5W30 or 5W40. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of what they actually mean, but basically the weight number will determine how thick the oil is at a certain temperature. So it kind of also varies on where you live. If you don't really know, you don't have an idea, just call your dealer or call some shops around your area, or just Google online. Another really important thing to change while you're doing an oil change is the oil filters. Also, it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. I got this from ECS Tuning, I think, as the oil as well. But just check your user manual and you'll find what model or what part number it is, or just Google online. There's really tons of information online. I learned everything I'm doing today online pretty much. As of how often you should do your oil change, it really varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. I believe originally VW recommends, I think, 10,000 or a year. I usually think that's a little bit too much, 10,000 miles. So I'm usually do it 1 year or every 5,000 miles. This past year, it only had 3,000 miles, but it's reached a year. So that's the reason why I'm doing an oil change. So to do an oil change, the first thing you gotta do is to drain your oil. Obviously, right? But a pro tip, before you actually drain your oil, warm up your car for like a good 5 to 10 minutes. You don't really have to drive around anything. You can just let it run for like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. It depends on where you're at. Like today, it's a very cold weather. The car's been sitting outside for a pretty long time, so I probably will let it idle for a little bit longer just so that the engine is a little bit warmer. The purpose of this is so that the oil will flow a little bit faster when you're draining your oil, so that you don't have to wait forever for the dirty oil to drain out. Make sure you have good ventilation when you're doing this in your garage because it smells like shit.
Let's start by opening the oil filler cap and dipstick a little bit to allow a better oil flow when draining. Now, depending on where your oil filter is located, if it is located at the top like this, loosen it now will also help with draining all the dirty oil. If your oil filter is located underneath the car, then you probably don't want to loosen it now. The oil filter socket that I'm using is a 74mm socket. I highly recommend it, and I'll leave it in the description down below. Now is where things starts to get a little messy. After removing the belly pan on the Tiguan, I've shown how to remove the belly pan in a previous video. Place the oil container underneath the oil pan. If it is the first time you're doing this, you might have to guess a little how the dirty oil trajectory is going to be. As you'll see in a bit, I should have placed the oil container a little bit more to the right. Lessons learned here is to bring a rag with you when doing this. Another good tip is to also put a cardboard underneath the oil container so that if any oil drips or trajectory miscalculated, cleaning the garage floor won't be such a nightmare. Once the dirty oil has drained, use a towel or rag to clean up the threads on the drain and drain plugs and put it back on just hand tight. Now we use a torque wrench to torque the drain plug to spec. Depending on what car you drive, the spec might be different. For my 2013 Tiguan, I torqued it to 30 Newton meters. Remember to do your research on what spec your car uses because you do not want to strip the threads on the oil pan. Remove the old oil filter and replace it with the new one, and remember to put some oil on the O-rings of the new filter. Now we can start adding our fresh oil. Once you reach about 3/4 of capacity, stop and take some measurements to make sure you don't overfill. To check the oil level, we pull out the dipstick and wipe it clean. We make sure at the bottom end of the dipstick is clean. We put the dipstick back in and pull it back out. We look at the bottom end of the dipstick, and in this example we can see that the oil level is still too low, so we need to add more oil. We check the oil levels again, and as you can see, we are about right in the middle. Put your oil cap back on and you're done.
Alright guys, so there you go. That's an oil change for the Tiguan, and pretty much every car I feel like an oil change is pretty much the same throughout all different cars. It's just that the oil is different, the torque spec might be different, where the oil pan is might be different. That's pretty much it. The one thing I'd like to mention, lesson learned, is that definitely put a cardboard box or some sort underneath the car when you're draining the oil, so that if the oil spills, the oil is not going to stain your driveway, which I will now have to clean that up. And as of the teaser, like I said earlier, is for the GTI. Yep. So I got the suspension. Leave a comment down below, guess what brand this is. It's the locking pins are blue, the rest is pretty much black. I have a guess. I'm not really sure if this is going to be the next thing I'm going to be doing on YouTube. I don't know. I kind of want to do a little bit more research on how to actually do this, because a lot of the things I'm going to be doing this channel is going to be my first time. So I'm not sure it's going to be the next video of me uploading, but I will definitely say that it is definitely coming for sure in the near future. So subscribe, leave a comment down below, let me know what you think, or if you have any suggestions or things that you want to have a look at. And the last thing before we leave this video is that the oil that you have drained and collected, you can pretty much bring it over to any auto shop, AutoZone, Advance, or whatever. They have a container that you can dump that into, or if you have some local garage near you, usually they will take it. It's usually free. It's not gonna cost them anything. Don't put that down like the drain system or like your kitchen, your toilet. Don't do that. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.